Hey, everybody, and welcome to a special 9/11 tribute episode of Frank About Health. I'm here by myself. I call the episode Disruption and Reflection. I think every 9/11, because I went through the events as we all did here in New York City, but I just remember what I was doing at the very times when the various planes crashed into the towers and crashed into the Pentagon and fell in Shanksville with the Flight 93, which in itself had become a hero's ship in all of that tragedy and disaster. I always use that day as my own holiday. I do a lot more time watching the tributes on news and then just hearing the names of those people that were lost, some of which I knew from my days at Brooklyn Technical High School, from my time at Sony Music Entertainment, even just in general, people that I'd known through other people as well. And plus living with the months afterwards and dealing with the smoke and the chaos and a lot of unity that occurred in our city. A lot of people banding together, helping each other out, just making sure you were feeling good. It's incredible how here 24 years later we're more divided than ever. So I wanted to dedicate this show in particular to show how healthcare disruption still continues. After all, that event was a disruptive event for all of us. And yet there are solutions, and there are some people that have been on Frank About Health that have shown those solutions. So I wanted to also reflect on what was said on Frank About Health in the recent past that remind all of you that there are opportunities to manage your health care and advocate for yourself regardless of what other chaos is going on. I will issue my official disclaimer, even though there is no guest on this particular episode. What you are going to hear are thoughts and reflections throughout the last 24 years, but even throughout the last week, because they're my experiences as I continue on a daily basis, not just on this show, but in life, to advocate for healthcare for my father, for my cousin, and for the community at large. They are not the views of talkradio.nyc. They are my opinions, so they might be controversial if you don't agree with me, but they're not meant to dissuade you from your treatment plans, your protocols, your medications, or even your own opinions, whatever they may be. They're just here to inform. So that all being said, I just wanted to thank all of you for continuing to watch Frank About Health, especially now that this is my 154th episode. And I am basically looking forward to continue on throughout the rest of this year in really advocating change and providing the resources and information that we all need. Because as I've experienced this past week, there is a lot of misinformation and it's getting worse. All right, so back to 9/11. 24 years ago, I was a student at Fordham University Gabelli School of Business, getting my MBA, working for Sony Music Entertainment at the same time. And I decided to work on a project for a company known as Starbucks. Now, at the same time, I was in the music industry, so for me, I was getting an MBA in international marketing for the focus of artist development. Podcasting is a little bit like the recording industry, but in a different tone. I decided to go in early to the office to work on my case, and the next thing I know, at 8:46 in the morning, I hear news on my email blast that a plane went into the South Tower. Now, or maybe it was the North Tower. Either way, I believed it was someone coming from the Hamptons after summer break, probably drunk while flying, and clipped the wing. I mean, I didn't realize the severity of it until I actually found a lot of people running around the office and going into their boss's offices, watching the TV with all the chaos, people hanging their shirts in the broken windows looking for help. And I just found myself quoting movie titles. I think I even said Armageddon or Independence Day, or I couldn't believe what was happening. The whole thing was definitely a dream. Not until I saw the first building fall on TV. Then I ran the hell out of there and got myself home as quick as possible. And by the time I got home, I had a chance through my window out here to watch the second building fall. So that was definitely a point of trauma, a pivot point for me, where I was looking at how our country, which only a week prior was just celebrating the end of summer, and it was a clear day that Tuesday. Um, is now what's going to happen to all of us? Are we under the threat of terror for other attacks that could happen? At that time, were we going to go to war? How many people died? How many people survived? All the unknowns that went on. I think that would confuse and traumatize a lot of people. So even just living it and watching it and hearing about it is traumatic enough. I mean, but at the same time, what it taught me was how to be very empathic. And I thought I would just share as a tribute to 9/11 that one of the skill sets, if you are a survivor of 9/11, either by watching it, living through the day, or even being at the towers, doing what you can to have that as a life lesson to continue to advocate. If it's not even healthcare, just advocate for others. That would be one of the biggest lessons that I take from that day, which is why I consider 9/11 kind of like a reflection holiday. It's not an illegal holiday, but it's a time to reflect how good you've been to your community at large, so forth and so on. The other things I wanted to say was is that the top health issues that grew out of that day were PTSD, cancer, and respiratory illnesses. And you have heard over the last 24 years a lot of people dying from post 9/11 disorders that they probably inherited by being around the contagion, the pile, as they called it, among other kinds of toxins that were in the New York City area. I know there's the 9/11 Victim Defense Fund, a lot of people have submitted claims for. And it's unfortunate that even here we are 24 years later, and many more thousands have died from those illnesses. I think, if anything, what I also noticed is that was around the time when we were trying to see more advocacy towards healthcare reform, whether it was your insurance protection, the type of doctors you went to or needed to see. There was much more advocacy for mental health. Um, and I even noticed that it was 3 years later, around 2000. No, I'm sorry, 10 years later, around 2013, when Obamacare was introduced, when our president at that time, Barack Obama, had really wanted to undertake healthcare reform. Now, I could tell you that personally, my time in the music industry ended about 2 years later, but I just found myself slowly but surely taking the entrepreneurial route and going towards healthcare, healthcare marketing, healthcare awareness, healthcare advocacy. I was forced into it in certain ways. I mean, living with epilepsy, I had to advocate for myself pretty much 24/7. But I didn't see myself working for anybody anymore. I saw myself working towards building a cause or building a foundation for people to turn to. So, one little piece of my best includes a company that I created through NYU called MedCash. And the CASH was an acronym, Community Action for Social Health. But it was a financial product. It never did see the light of day like I had intended at the time. I mean, again, ironically, there was iPhone, but there were no Android phones. There were no cash apps or mobile payment systems in place at the time, and insurance companies still ruled the roost. But the intention of Medcash was to provide everyone out there with healthcare payment solutions when their insurance did not work for them anymore. So I guess you could say 9/11 did really reframe my thinking and my vision as to what I do in my career, personally and professionally, that really does what it can to help and advocate for others. So, as part of this episode of disruption and reflection, I'm reflecting that the disruption of 9/11 did do a lot of changes to my work ethic and to my sense of importance for other people's self awareness of what resources they did have if they were unaware of them, or even just in general, the right doctors to go to, the right hospital systems to concern themselves with, the right books to read. And of course, podcasts grew out of that social media movement in 2008, but more like in the early 2010s, as I then began to learn by joining Talk Radio NYC in 2016, where I was trying to advocate for epilepsy and removing the stigma behind it. Now, I'm not using this episode to reflect on my career trajectory here, but I am just pointing out how I do spend a lot of my time, especially while witnessing um, traumatic events like 9/11, to do a lot of self-reflection and redirect my thought process and my leadership focus on what I can do to help others, while at the same time doing what I can to create a successful operation that is going to be able to help others. But what other disruption occurs today is chaos and misinformation, which actually tries to prevent my advocacy from going full force. At least I could say that here in New York State, in particular, I have not had as much pushback as I have experienced in other states, but or even other cities for that matter. But I can say that overall, the way that I want everyone to think of 9/11 is not just to remember the loved ones if you've lost any, but just to remember there are comorbid diseases that grew out of that very day. If you happen to know anyone, or if you yourself are a victim of such diseases, like I mentioned earlier, do what you can to try to make your claim if you were in the area during 9/11 with the Victims Compensation Fund. And at the same time, do what you can to find the right treatments. Um, I question about, like, for example, my father's experience with cancer. He was in the area around that time, but I don't know if there's a direct link to that. I think that is something we're looking into. So, overall, to summarize, 9/11 is a period for all of us who went through it, all of us who lost loved ones from it, all of us that suffered comorbid mental or physical illnesses. Try to find out the right insurance or programs or government support programs you can get yourself involved in to find support. And then also to pay tribute to those you've lost. I spent all morning on Facebook paying tribute by setting up reels and posts and other kinds of things, which you will all get to see in my first commercial break. Also, a little tidbit, I did start the week on a little bit of a high note. I was invited to be in the audience of The View, the season premiere, season 29. And believe it or not, what they talked about was other healthcare issues that are being misinformed. So I'm going to dedicate this show to reflect not necessarily on my appearance there, but more on the information that was shared there that I will also put in Frank About Health terms throughout the hour. We are ready for our first break. So please stay tuned right here as I am reflecting on 9/11 as a period of disruption and reflection right here on talkradio.nyc and our Facebook channel, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. We'll be back in a few.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. 9/11 is in the fall, it's in September. But the same thing that occurs in September is your annual physical. And whether or not you get the flu shot, whether or not you get the COVID shot, whether or not you get yourself all prepared for the new first day at school, your first day at your new job, or even if you are promoting and launching your business, whatever might be going on. Of course, that also could be the first day after summer when everybody's coming back from their vacations or from other kinds of experiences that may have given them illnesses based on the food that they ate or the places they had been. So the issue remains everyone commonly should be vaccinated. I'm not mandating vaccines, and I'm certainly not saying that if you don't do it, you're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying that vaccines for me is my Bible. Being an epileptic individual, I don't have any autoimmune compromised position with epilepsy. It's all about electrical discharge. However, during COVID, which I lived through, which we all lived through, those 5 months being locked in my apartment with a one parent recovering from cancer and another parent experiencing vertigo and other kinds of issues that were going on, I was always worried about everyone doing what they can to get all the vaccines to prevent COVID when they were made available. Everyone remembers in 2021 when Operation Warp Speed was approved and the mRNA vaccine first admitted shot in New York was at Northwell Health, and it was Moderna, I believe. And then Mount Sinai Hospital System did the first Pfizer shot. There were other vaccines at that time, but the ones that survived it were Moderna and Pfizer because of a unique element known as mRNA. mRNA is of big controversy right now in our country, and yet everyone was like trying to book multiple appointments to get as many shots as they could 5 years ago. It is incredible how it takes a pandemic for bring everyone back to earth to reflect on what's important for their life and their family's health and wellness. But when we are under normal circumstances, the misinformation and the distractions and the incorrect data seem to take over. Now, I have always, I guess by virtue of having Frank About Health, or even by doing caregiving for my family and having a close relationship at NYU Langone, I'm always looking at the data. I'm always looking at every illness. I'm always looking at every possible solution, whether it's alternative or medically based or surgical or acupuncture based. I mean, you name it. For me, healthcare is serious business for my business and for my health. But when I see all this misinformation going on, I get confused. I think to myself, okay, well, this person is not informed, but at least I have my wealth of information and history to be able to know what's true and what's not. But I am amazed how many people are influenced at the misinformation. Now, I am most vehement about mRNA in the following way. mRNA is a unique vaccine because it is not the actual virus. It is not the COVID-19 virus, coronavirus disease. It is genetic code that was worked with Pfizer and BioNTech in Germany that Moderna licensed out so that they can also issue the mRNA vaccine. And it created, over a period of a year, year and a half, especially after we had the Omicron variant, some form of immunity. We were looking at 1.2 million people lost due to the coronavirus pandemic, but it was halted when the vaccines were slowly and eventually fully rolled out to everyone from your children to your seniors to people with comorbid illness to people who were over 65 and healthy. But if you definitely had things like cancer and diabetes and any other kind of comorbid illnesses like the flu, you needed your vaccine, you needed your booster. I'm proud to say I've been boosted 8 times after taking the first shot in 2021. I had to at the same time because I became a professional caregiver for my father and for my cousin. The mRNA vaccine is now been restricted to the point where you need a prescription to go into CVS or Walgreens, which are the national chains issuing them. Yet, I can get my COVID shot. I mean, I can get my flu shot if I want it, but I want both. And in fact, I have my physical next Thursday. So I'm going to get my prescription. But yet, for all New Yorkers out there, I just have news, if you're aware, that on Friday, which was I think it was the 5th of September at 2 p.m., our governor, Kathy Hochul, signed an executive order requiring all New Yorkers, New York State people, and New York City, if they want the vaccine, regardless of age, to go get it at those two pharmacies I mentioned without a prescription, without proof that you need it. All I can say is that New York was the epicenter of the pandemic back in 2020 and 2021. So New York is responding, in my view, again, my opinion, in the right way. I am not trying to say that getting vaccines you must do or not. I mean, I'm not going to push that on anyone, but I'm trying to make the awareness out there that mRNA, being genetic code, is revolutionary because it also was being researched for finding cures for cancer, HIV, AIDS, leukemia, diabetes. mRNA is just reprogramming your very immune system to resist what has historically been fatal illness. So, something that is disruptive like that, but in a very positive way, stokes fear for some unexplainable reason. Me, I welcome the challenge. And I basically am advocating mRNA as not a form of artificial intelligence, but as a form of allowing individuals to be preserved from having to experience the COVID pandemic, or rather the COVID disease, in the way that we all did in 2020 when there was no solution other than riding it out. And that was a very scary time. Another traumatic moment other than 9/11. The reason why I'm also emphasizing mRNA is because, due to the big beautiful bill, which was signed on July 4th, in 2026, mRNA is being cut financially and in terms of distribution and research. I can't speak to that because I'm not a medical doctor or a medical student, but it's implied from the various guests I've had on my show, including Dr. Marshall Runji, that to lose mRNA is going to be a big loss that I'm not sure we would be able to recover from in the right amount of time needed, especially if, God forbid, another pandemic hits us. I want everyone out there who's interested in mRNA to do the research. Don't listen to the news. Don't listen to what our representatives are saying, whether they're for it or against it. Listen to your own mind. Do the research, understand what mRNA means. I can't actually remember it offhand, so I'm not going to do that. But you can chat GPT it, Google it. You could research all you want, and you will get the information that is publicly accessible and that would at least keep you informed. Also, I'm going to do a plug for Marshall Runji's great healthcare disruption book, which I featured on the show back in April and May. That book basically gives you more breakdowns on what mRNA is, as well as the other innovations that are coming out to really help us and our future generations. I wish people in general would look at healthcare as research into our lives and into our future, and not the threat of some scary thing that is definitely going to take you and that we're all fighting to prevent that. That negative thinking is what gets us into pandemics. It's what created the terrorism on 9/11, 2001. And it also leaves a lot of people bewildered and confused. And for me, I'm very passionate about this because when I had the chance to sit in the View audience, I was watching, it was season 29, episode 1. Look for it on Hulu if you want to see it. But everyone was complaining, from Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, Joy Behar, Alyssa Farah Griffin, Anna Navarro, and Sarah Haynes, that children were being affected, seniors were being affected, and at least it was being notified that the individual states that are aware of the efficacy of mRNA are fighting for it. And thankfully, we have states' rights that allow us to overturn whatever is being federally mandated or pushed upon us through misinformation. And again, I give it out to Kathy Hochul again because she's doing exactly what I was going to do anyway, which is schedule the mRNA vaccine for myself, my father, my mother, other people that I know that are around all the continued caregiving that we're doing. And we're just going to be as immune and protected as possible because I do believe, even from experience, mRNA works. And not only that, it does create a boost to your immune system. We're probably not getting other diseases that we just don't even know about because it has that efficacy, not just for COVID, but for any other kinds of untested or uninfected illness that we have not yet gone through. All right, I think that was my little mantra for this section. So, the first section of the show was about the disruption of 9/11, and the second one is about the misinformation which is disrupting for a life saving vaccine known as mRNA. All right, everybody, I think it's time for my second break. I haven't seen the alert yet, so I'm going to just get a head start. Oh, yep, I just got the cue. I still got time. If I can give you some more mRNA information for your thought process, I will say I hope that the insights that I've shared uh, about how disruption can create opportunities is going to give you a sense of progress, awareness, and healing. All right, please stay tuned right here on talkradio.nyc as I do a little less reflecting and a more discussion on disruption right here on talkradio.nyc and on all of our socials. We'll be back in a few.
Misalignment within your sales team or with the client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody. That was me in the audience applauding as Whoopi Goldberg was welcoming us all back to season 29. I'm sorry I did some shameless self-promotion, but I'm at least exemplifying how I actually came up with today's episode, all based on my appearance on that show. So, what we talked about, which I cannot show for disclaimer reasons and whatever, was the women's reaction to what mRNA disruption is going on. But I do have my own solution, which is an episode of Frank About Health taken back in April or May with Dr. Marshall Runge when we talk about mRNA vaccines. And of course, there is the QR code there for his book. So if you want to buy it, feel free to use it. I'm now going to switch this so that we can all see the segment that was important to learn from.
I think the goal of a book that is um, approachable and to people who are interested in healthcare. You don't have to be a healthcare expert to
Correct.
benefit. And this is, as Frank said to start with, the idea is to stimulate conversation around health in all of our communities and across the United States. And I hope it's successful doing that so that we can be healthier.
Exactly. And speaking about being healthier, you were talking there about vaccines, and I was talking with you about how I saw it as a disruptor, meaning something positive for finding cures for long considered fatal illnesses, especially the epidemic we went through in the 80s, David, the HIV/AIDS pandemic. What do you have to say, Marshall, about how mRNA may continue to thrive, which I'm hoping, considering all of the legislation that's being passed?
Oh, I think mRNA in terms of rapid development of vaccines, excuse me, is
Sure.
a real game changer. And for some illnesses that have been particularly resistant, like HIV, the development of a vaccines are inexpensive and are a great way to improve public health, not just in the United States, globally. So when you think about HIV, that has been a real difficult problem for scientists who are experts in that area. Yet, as I understand it, and I'm not an expert in that area, but I think HIV vaccination is much closer than it ever was before and is being studied.
Interesting. And then what can you say about that?
Yeah, I think
If you want more information about that and about mRNA for all the cancer, I leave that to you guys getting the book and hearing his opinions on that or watching that episode of Frank About Health. It was all about CRISPR and vaccines and genetic technology to finding cures for long considered fatal illness. Well, either way, I'm just pointing out that we are living in a society that is continually being disrupted. That's my view. I don't know if you feel the same way, but when it comes to your healthcare, that's not something we can play with. I mean, it depends on how you view your quality of life. Now, having been surrounded by tremendous caregiving since the pandemic, and not to mention my own personal traumas and witnessing what I had to do with my cousin in February, which was to put her in a nursing home with Alzheimer's disease, that has done a lot of exhaustive and a lot of energy and brain power that I still wonder how I'm continuing to advocate at any level that I have already intended. But it's not that I'm concerned about my own reaction. I'm concerned about how, with the experiences that we've had with both 9/11 and COVID, how do individuals get placed into the belief system that is forced upon us uh, after having experienced those big turning points. So I'm amazed at it. I'll never understand it. I guess it's dependent on everyone's individual choice or individual views. But I'm just hoping that if you're really looking for some closure and solutions and clarity, that you go to the resources that I'm providing and that are already out there. You just have to be able to make sure where you find it. And don't, if you hear anything that doesn't feel right, definitely use your intuition. If it doesn't feel right, double check it, triple check it, quadruple check it. Because again, we are talking about many different levels of healthcare. We're talking about avoiding or surviving pandemics. That's point one. We're also talking about how we are living in one of the greatest countries on earth that seems to be reversing course. Uh, and when you see that, you can either run from it or you can either deal with it. And when you deal with it, you have to look from within and you have to, at the same time, take your mental triggers into consideration because we've all been through trauma and try to be able to reflect on how do you use the confusion as your resource to create the solution, especially if you're not in a position with resources available to you. Constant research, constant communication with others, and at the same time, using the right medical system and right doctors that really benefit you and your family. Overall, I have found that the experience in speaking with Dr. Marshall Runge has definitely influenced me to take this podcast on a much higher level, especially during the last 3 months of this year. I will continue to have my guests talk about different healthcare stories that are affecting them, books that they've put out. But you remember last week I had Otho Eskin, a non-healthcare individual, talk about how he is living in his early 90s and writing books and plays as if he's in his 60s or even younger. Who knows? He keeps himself engaged. He listens to his inner voice. He he also did have experience in working in Washington and in the Foreign Service, so maybe it just framed his thinking style to be very self-advocacy or self-advocacy oriented. Um, People like him impressed me, as did Marshall Runge, as did Deepak Sani, as did um, John Byer. You know, surviving alcoholism, and continued to be in recovery while building a thriving, successful business and then starting a recording career. That is essentially my view, not to quote the show, but in my view, it basically means that when faced with disruption, find out within you will help you survive it and stand out and advocate for others when you can. I think that's why we're all meant to deal with events like 9/11 and to reflect on them, or even when dealing with other kinds of unexpected chaos or crises. What was the word I heard this morning? It was look to your inner voice, your inner angels. But, you know, more importantly, just continue to seek from within first before you waste your energy or even start to help others when you don't have the right information. It all begins with you. It starts with you, and then hopefully everyone else benefits from the legacy that you create, whether you're a caregiver or you have a podcast or you're just doing what you can to make people live through the constant chaos and disruption that goes through. During the next commercial break, I will show my YouTube playlist of the various shows that I've done, especially the most recent ones, because in each of them, I noticed the trend is that I decided to have voices on Frank About Health that were people that were taking disruption and making it work for them. And this is what I'm hoping the listeners and viewers of this show will take from when I present them to you, not just to read their books, but at the same time to learn that part of yourself that you can start using more effectively as we go through continued chaos and disruption. I would have to say that this year, especially after Retha Gray had passed, I have done more reflecting and more inner focus and inner work. Um, because at the end of the day, the only voice that really understands what I'm trying to say is me. So I'm hoping that Frank About Health going forward is going to be a reflection of tapping into your inner voice. Um, let's see what else I can tell you about. Yes, I mentioned Dr. Marshall Runge, obviously, and Deepak Sani, who wanted to be a centenarian. His whole episode on longevity, through his work up in Canada. He was referred to me by Linda Marsanico on our sister program, the A Train to Sedona. And she definitely is on the road to love and compassion, as her book and her podcast advocates. But I think she and I are speaking the same language. It's not just love and compassion, it is part of it, but it's all looking from within. Because when you are aware of yourself, your intuition, your education, your experience, your triggers, your traumas, your memories, you're able to turn them into lessons for others. That is what brings back the unity that we all had after 9/11. And with all the dividing that's going on, I hear it's going to get worse. So now's the time to build your inner communities and make them grow towards the next years out there, um, when you still have to live through life as other people may or may not survive all the chaos and confusion. So, inspiration is key when dealing with disruption. You use your reflection for it. As I said earlier, it brings you more self awareness and then hopefully healing. Because usually healings happen not just because of the medication and the doctors and the vaccines, but they definitely happen, and even at an exponential rate, when you have more increased self awareness. If you remember, I had Anshar Seraphim on the show a couple weeks ago. And an individual like him who has lived his whole life being nonverbal to the age of 11 and then having to learn through different uh, methods, different technologies, different strategies in order to connect to human beings, you would never know based on the way that he acts and presents himself to be that he is an individual with sensory disorder or at the same time having been nonverbal for a long period of time before now being as best as he can for others, especially in the neurodivergent community, and for others that just want to gain more self awareness. And I could say, yes, speaking with him as I have right here with talkradio.nyc, among other types of conversations, I become more aware of what it is I need to do going forward to make sure that this show gives even a better message out there throughout the rest of this year and beyond. All right, we're ready for our final break. So, that being said, please stay tuned right here on talkradio.nyc and on our social media, and we'll be back in a few. On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, aka the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Meltesh Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers!
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. So that has been my week of reflection, including, of course, today, 9/11. I did give an overview in the beginning of the show as to what my life was like between 2001 and up until about 2008, 2012. And then, of course, I did come to talkradio.nyc in 2016 just to focus on epilepsy. But I guess, if anything, I was given that condition genetically, which is what my doctors have told me. I guess to plant the seed of becoming as best of a healthcare advocate that I can be, both personally and professionally. I'm proud to say that over the last 150, what did I say, 154 episodes, I have literally seen a lot of growth in the type of programming that I've put out there. At the same time, I have also seen the direction that the show needs to go into in order to reach even more mass audiences, whether it's at the medical schools or whether it's at the hospital systems or even in the educational institutions for people who want to even explore healthcare. Having the most recent guests that I've featured during this show, as well as who I will be featuring in the coming weeks, are the types of people that will be able to provide you, the viewer and listener, additional resources than any of that I may have mentioned today. Everyone knows Phyllis Quinlan has been a big advocate of mine. She was co-host for over 40 episodes and has come back for special shows like what we did with the Frank About Health 150th episode tribute, as well as be here for Marshall Runge and also talk about the big, beautiful bill. Now, I am one of those people that read it. No, I did not read all 1,000 pages word by word, but I read the chunks that affected healthcare. And it does not look at all hopeful or happy. I'm just glad that, at least within New York State, there are protections still put in place, at least for another 5 to 10 years. So I have already seen some of the impacts, though. Um, my friend Jose Dennis, who's been on this show and on Siobhan Larissa's show, The Expansion Room, who shows nutritious cooking, has already experienced the doubling of his healthcare premium, and it's a group plan. My nutrition benefit, which I need to prevent prediabetes or even to lose weight where possible, is no longer covered by my insurance. Better yet, because I have Aetna Medicare, the Medicare portion is not covering it. Simultaneously, my medications, which I used to get from Mark's Marine Pharmacy in Canada, now are exposed to the tariffs and everything else that it's cheaper to get the generic here in New York with my insurance. And then, of course, there are other issues where if I once had to go through a pre-approval process, now I have to also show the need for the care. Now, I have an ongoing knee injury where I was told that I would have to possibly get surgery in a couple years. Now, I've been through arthroscopy, but not knee replacement surgery. The issue is that I need to find the alternative solutions to avoid something that might actually not be funded or covered. I'm not about to go and look into my retirement funds to pay for knee surgery. So I'm doing my physical therapy and I'm looking at alternative treatments and I'm looking at nutrition and vitamins and Tylenol to help me in dealing with the challenges that I face every day. Now, I am so used to dealing with so many different health related challenges, whether they are the mental health variety or physical, that for me it's just another project. But I will do my best whenever faced with those challenges to communicate them right here on Frank About Health. Next week, I have another special guest that has never been on the show before. I've had a chance to meet her already. She's a referral from Sam Leibowitz. Her name is Vicky Mizell. She has a new memory program that helps you train your brain to help you find your inner focus, your inner goals, your inner dreams, and also to bring back your memory, especially if you think you might have some dementia related illness. Now, I'm actually going to do that live and in person. I haven't figured out the venue yet, but after meeting with her and seeing her creativity, and thank you, Sam, by the way, she is a lively individual. I just thought she needs to be on this show to help inspire all of you out there to get not only the needed information that I'm trying to advocate for, but also other insights that she has and other professionals that she can refer the listeners and viewers out to consult. You also remember I had the bee venom therapist here a while back, another referral from Sam. Um, I, I know he's based in Utah, I believe, but he managed to use bee venom to deal with Lyme disease, and I might be contacting him soon to deal with my knee because I think he said he could also treat that. But you see what I'm trying to say? I'm looking at the guests that I've had on the show who are disruptors, change makers, influencers. Try to look at the alternative treatment methodologies that are more cost effective, least side effects, but at the same time can only provide knowledge through their own experience. And that's essentially what I've been doing right here on Frank About Health. Overall, I hope you have a chance to look at my YouTube page and my website, frankrharrison.com, so that you could take a look at the myriad of shows, especially over the last 6 months, because I have been spending a lot of time covering disruption and advocacy. 9/11 is a special day for many, many people, but there was no way that I was going to let this week go by without doing a show just because I didn't have a guest. No, it was going to be making a tribute to that day 24 years ago, but at the same time, using it as a platform for all of us to know what our inner strengths are. Um, I'm trying to mirror a little bit about what Sam talks about on the Conscious Consultant Hour. everyday awakenings, right? Just whatever you have experienced in the past that gets reflected, like on today's 24th anniversary, whatever awakening or awareness you tap into, use it as best as you can. I would also like to say that mRNA vaccines and healthcare policy continue to shift. There's a lot of conflation going on and a lot of disruptive voices trying to confuse people. I would say, please, if you want to get direct information, look on either my show, The Expansion Room, A Train to Sedona, The Conscious Consultant Hour, The Hard Skills, um, Serving Up Success with a Splash, Making Seamless Sales. I'm trying to get them all in there. Uh, at the same time, Philanthropy and Focus. They're all on talkradio.nyc, and we are all doing what we can to provide advocacy, education, awareness, and in my case, healthcare advice and support. I have found that doing this show today was going to be nerve wracking because I was worried about giving too much information. Like I said earlier, I couldn't show you the footage on The View without possibly getting some kind of warning notices about showing information that is copywritten or whatever. But the messages were so alive that day when I was sitting there in the audience. I literally thought I was just watching my own show. I mean, I forgot we were live on tape on ABC. And the passion out of Whoopi's voice and Sunny Hostin and Anna Navarro in particular, all about the misinformation on something like mRNA, it resonated with me so viscerally. I wrote this episode in the back of my mind that morning. Well, I think I still got time, right, Jesse? Trying to do what I can to fill it up with information and resources for people. Thank you. 5 minutes. Okay, so let me give you some promo plugs. This weekend, I have been fortunate enough to be invited by Lacey Kupani, who is a fashion designer running her own fashion weekend, and myself, Jose Dennis, and three other people, one from Brooklyn Tech, one person, Vicky Mizell, as well as one of the co-creators of the name Medcash. Her name is Nakia Kelly. Will be in the VIP section at the runway, watching Fashion Week with her designs. And at the same time, it'll be the launch of my new company, Healthy Media, where in it will be the place where you can go and view the documentary that I had created with the help of Emily Schulman and Jessica Serwin, as well as all the other people that have been on Frank About Health, especially you, Sam. And while it was going to be something with Hilton Hotels, right now it's going to be something for the community at large. The YouTube link is available, but I think I will actively promote it to everyone, starting with Vicky's show next week. And that's gonna be a real thrill. I am working hard and extensively on getting Marshall Runji to come back. I also want to get Anshar Seraphim back. I also want to get Deepak Sani back, John Byer back, as well as all the other individuals that have had something very inspirational to say. I will tell you honestly, the last 3 months of this year, which is pretty much my next season of shows, are going to be a lot of comeback episodes to see where we are now compared to when they first appeared. But I guess as the time progresses, I will know more, and then you will all know as well. All right. I think I'm going to end the show a little earlier. I think I have about 2 minutes to ending. So please stay tuned for the next two shows right here on talkradio.nyc, Serving Up Success with a Splash and Making Seamless Sales at 7 o'clock. And then I will be back next week with a special show with Vicky Mizell on Frank About Health at a venue of some sort. I mean, I don't know if it's a restaurant or a Starbucks or even a library. I'm kidding. It'll be somewhere else. But I hope you join me then, and I will see you all next week. Thanks again, Jesse, behind the scenes. Bye.